holders of 4 FIFA-recognized World Championships.
Copa America 2024, brought to you by
KFC, J. Ray and Nephew, Courts, Sunshine Snacks.
Start saving for your golden years with a Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme. The time by Sagicor Life is
7 o'clock.
CVM News at 7 headlines Friday, brought to you by SuperMed Family of Pharmacies. Super happy, super healthy, SuperMed.
Tonight in CVM News at 7. No effect. Prosecution argues Kartel's retrial wouldn't be influenced by media publicity. Walk it back. Transport Minister wants back local ride-share ban. And father and son among 3 killed in bizarre Hanover attack.
Also this evening, roll call. Opposition MP urges church to help with rape law amendments. In business, CARICOM looks to Africa for payment solutions. And in sports, Jamaica Football Federation General Secretary Dennis Chung weighs in on the Leon Bailey selection saga.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. I'm Curlin Brown. TK Dawkins will join us in a moment. It's Friday, June 14, 2024. Thanks so much for staying with us. The Bahamas is taking significant steps to enhance inter-regional travel and strengthen ties with neighboring Caribbean nations.
The Bahamas is serious about inter-regional travel. That's why Deputy Prime Minister Isaac Chester Cooper says his country has initiated talks with the regional airlines to find a commercial solution to at least part of the age-old dilemma.
And this is why, as Vice Chairman of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, I've initiated a dialogue between Bahamas Air, Cayman Airways, Caribbean Airlines, and Copa Airlines for interline agreements and route harmonization in the first instance to encourage multi-destination tourism that may be leveraged for cargo as well.
Last year, interregional travel capacity declined by 10% compared to the same period in 2019. However, experts say the introduction and expansion of airlines like Arajet and Inter-Caribbean Airlines show promising signs of improving connectivity. The renewed focus on regional connectivity coincides with discussions about increased collaboration between Caribbean and African economies. Minister Cooper believes it's up to Afro-Caribbean leaders to follow through on discussions about tourism expansion, cargo, and trade.
Here in the Bahamas, more than $1 billion leave our country every year to buy food from outside of the Afro-Caribbean region. The only thing stopping us from keeping much of this money here, or much of it going east or south instead of north, is us.
The Bahamas recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the African Export-Import Bank to develop an Afro-Caribbean marketplace in Grand Bahama. It's intended to boost trade opportunities between Africa and Caribbean nations like Jamaica.
But we want more, Mr. President. We want you to help us with the resilience building to combat climate change. We want your billionaires to buy second homes and use our trust, our investment funds, and private banking platforms. Together, we can advocate for fairer trade policies, equitable financial systems, and the reform of international institutions to better serve the interests of developing nations.
Ramon for CVM News.
And former Prime Minister PJ Patterson is making headlines with a bold call to action at the 3rd annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. His latest remarks address a crucial issue impacting Afro-Caribbean nations. Here again is Ramon Gordon, who is in the Bahamas.
It's time to get serious about trade. That's according to former Jamaican Prime Minister PJ Patterson, who is calling for a rethinking of how Afro-Caribbean nations trade with the globe. The Prime Minister recently made a rallying cry here in the Bahamas.
The first thing that has to happen is that Africa has to finally exercise true sovereign power over all its resources.
The former Prime Minister is critical of what he perceives as predatory trade practices, which he says stall the development of majority black nations. This comes just a few months after President of the Central African Republic accused Western countries of causing a migration crisis by exploiting Africa's natural resources and impoverishing the continent through slavery and neocolonialism. The African leader's charge is by no means isolated. That's why PM Patterson thinks it's time for the resource-rich continent to rethink its place in the global economy.
First of all, Africa must decide that it is the seller who determines the price. If the buyer can't afford it, do without it.
Patterson further reiterated a call for more deliberate Afro-Caribbean trade. His latest suggestion focuses on infrastructure.
Bulk is necessary to make the economies of scale feasible. So we have to start to build ports in the Caribbean where we accumulate the goods that we are going to be sending to Africa, and likewise in Africa there should be central ports where a sufficiency of goods is collected to make the thing worthwhile.
The 3rd annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum was incorporated fully within the 31st Afri-Exim Bank annual meetings. The forum focuses on leveraging global Africa to foster new opportunities for the Caribbean. It's Ramon Gordon reporting from Nassau, Bahamas for CVM News.
A popular funeral home operator was fatally shot at his parlor Thursday afternoon in Green Island, Hanover. Dead is 44-year-old Robert Williams, also known as Banggy, a resident of Cauldwell in the parish. The incident marks a trend in the Green Island area where nearly a dozen murders have been recorded since the start of the year. Williams was gunned down at around 1 o'clock while sitting outside his funeral home on Harden Hall Road with his girlfriend. Reports are 2 men on a motorcycle approached and opened fire, striking Williams multiple times. The assailants then fled the scene. Williams' girlfriend escaped without injury. The police were later summoned. Upon arrival, lawmen found Williams lying in a pool of blood. He was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead.
And also out of Hanover, gunmen shot and killed 3 men and injured a 4th in Johnstown, and that was on Thursday evening. Among the victims, a father and his son. Now the community is in shock. Here's Nika Lewis with that story.
It was an eerie encounter. Gunfire shattered the serenity of Johnstown in Hanover Thursday night, killing 3 men. The deceased have been identified as 41-year-old Merrick Calvin Sr., his 21-year-old son Merrick Calvin Jr., affectionately called Cal, and a man known only as Michael. All 3 victims were residents of Johnstown. Preliminary reports are that on Thursday evening, Calvin Jr. was helping Michael build a bar and a shop along the beachfront on the Johnstown Main Road when 2 men on a motorcycle drove up and shot at them. Shortly after that, Calvin Sr. arrived at the scene just in time to witness the shooting on his way home from a supermarket in Lucy. The father, in an attempt to stop the gunmen, used his vehicle to knock the men from their motorcycle. He was successful, but the men soon recovered and fired multiple shots, wounding him. In a near cinematic turn of events, the gunmen attempting to escape targeted a bike taxi operator who was passing by, shooting and seriously injuring him before fleeing the scene on the man's motorcycle. The police arrived shortly after to find all 4 men suffering from gunshot wounds. They were taken to the Noel Holmes Hospital, where the father was admitted in serious condition, while his son and the other man, known as Michael, were pronounced dead. The bike taxi operator remains hospitalized in serious condition. However, CVM News understands the father later succumbed to his injuries. The families of the victims are now grappling with immense loss. Marlene Nation told CVM News that she finds it almost impossible to cope with the loss of both her son and grandson.
I don't expect them to bury them. I expect them to bury me. So I'm surprised to see this happen. But God not sleep. Hard work. Quiet. Him not talk. Only thing he get a smile and he gone. He help everybody. It's a help for you. It's a carpenter work. If you want to work the night happy, just call him. I'm willing to do it for you. You understand me? And if somebody want me trouble from yard to home, you can ask somebody else about him in the area from yard to home.
Meanwhile, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang was among stakeholders quick on the scene of the latest incident today. The minister assures despite the seeming increase in bloodletting in the Western Parish, crime is under control.
This situation is allowed to spread eventually or develop to a point where it will take some time to get under control and significant expansion of the police. But the original statement by the government were using the state of public emergency, which could in fact help in stemming the murder. Did help and can still help because all the people are now involved that we are looking for are people who have been locked up for other reasons, and of course in the criminal underworld nobody gives evidence on each other. So by the time you lock them up and you have to go to court, even a good lawyer, they tell you they're not pursuing anything or they give you a different information or they change the statement. Everybody come back on the street because their intention is to set the issues on the street and vote them. So we have been there to get them to stop that kind of activity, but that's the only way I can get them to accept that is to make the police more effective, and the police is making progress.
The minister is urging anyone with information to tell the police what they know, adding the prevalence of lottery scamming, interpersonal conflicts, and a proliferation of guns make crime fighting even more challenging in the space. Nika Lewis, CVM News.
CVM News at 7 will continue after this.
Seven Headlines Friday, brought to you by SuperMed Family of Pharmacies. Super happy, super healthy, SuperMed.
The new KFC Chizza Zinger. Crispy, spicy chicken topped with marinara sauce, mozzarella cheese, and pepperoni in a brioche bun. Available for a limited time. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Harry, how was school? It was really good, but I'm really hungry. Can we get some juicy patties? Sure we can. I never see a boil up patty like you.
Hey son, you good?
No, Dad, I'm starving. Can we get some juicy patties?
Celebrating over 40 years of everyday moments.
Hi, I'm Celine Gordon, host of Holy Road.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy John Mark Wigan, host on the show Holy Road. Listen, people need to know what's happening in the churches and in ministry in all of Jamaica. It's an absolute blessing. We're really excited to share this.
Tune in to CVM, see it happen.
Welcome back. Judges overseeing the cartel hearing are considering several factors to determine if a retrial is needed. On Friday, the court learned about a backlog of cases in the Supreme Court awaiting retrial, adding to the complexity of the deliberations. There are also concerns about constitutional breaches. Here's Natalia Clark, who has been tracking the case.
Day 5 of the Court of Appeal hearing to decide if Vybz Kartel and his 3 co-accused will be released ended with the prosecution conceding that the men's constitutional right to a fair trial within a reasonable time was breached. Prosecutor Lauren Cauldwell, however, said this can be remedied. She argues that a public admission that their rights have been breached and an expedited hearing are appropriate resolutions if their time in custody is further prolonged for a retrial. The Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms allows for infringements that are demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. But defense attorney John Clark says the admission is cause for concern.
As a Jamaican, I am concerned about that because it means that sometimes what we think is fundamental rights, which our forefathers fought for a reason, are not being valued as they should be, especially by state organs.
He represents Kyra Jones and Andre St. John, while Isaac Buchanan represents Adija Palmer and Sean Campbell. The team this week argued that it is not in the interest of the state nor the appellants for a retrial to be granted 13 years after the alleged crime.
Time has expired so long. Men have been in custody for 13 years, and we want the court to consider that factor and the special circumstances of this case, including the ordeal that the men have suffered, and also the more than 774 Jamaicans who are before the Home Circuit Court, who are waiting on their day in court, and who may have their matter pushed back just to facilitate this matter.
He says the latter is not only unfair to the accused people in waiting, but puts undue strain on already scarce state resources, a reality that he says must be put into context after acting DPP Claudette Thompson on Thursday said the state will just have to bear the cost.
I find that statement very concerning because ultimately I remember reading and hearing about stories of what happened in certain countries, in this country, whereby because the state doesn't have money for ventilation, you have babies who are dying. And when you recall the amount of Jamaicans who are in custody waiting for their days to have their trial, and the trial can't continue because of scarce resources in relation to courtroom, etc. And when one recalls the call that the Court of Appeal has been making for years for resources to ensure that they can hear matter in a timely manner, and one wonders what is meant by the state must just pay for it, because the state is you who's home. The state is your scarce taxpayers' dollars being utilized to go down and pursue one case when there are hundreds of Jamaicans and hundreds of victims who are waiting their turn in the queue.
The prosecution on Friday also sought to cement their point that publicity will not prejudice the case. Looking to support their stance, they noted there were over 110,000 tweets about the matter over a decade, but only 25.5% were from Jamaica, implying a viable jury pool still exists. It was also suggested Kartel could get bail during his retrial to tend to his medical needs, such as a surgery. A key consideration for the 3-judge panel, however, was the matter of delay in the Supreme Court. An affidavit from the court's registrar noted that the 2 cases sent back for retrial since 2018 are yet to receive a trial date. They, however, noted there is room for priority matters. Clark is confident the Court of Appeal has efficiently dissected the matter and anticipates their decision.
But what I'm happy about is that the judges are listening to both sides. They're posing hard questions to both sides. So justice is alive and well, it's kicking. Our judges have dealt with this matter, especially on the rehearing part, in a record time. And the appellants must take comfort from that, because what it demonstrates is that we have a justice system, one of the best in the world, where judges take seriously the rights of our citizens and will do what they think is best, bearing in mind the balance between the interests of the deceased family and the interests of the accused men.
The hearing will wrap up on Tuesday with the prosecution's conclusion and the defense's response. The Court of Appeal's decision is expected to take some time. Natalia Clark reporting for CVM News.
To this update now, speaking on CVM News at noon, Member of Parliament for South East St. Anne, Lisa Hanna, says now is the time for a change in the definition of rape and sexual intercourse as the nation pushes for constitutional reform. She says whether or not society is ready to accept the change, too many individuals have suffered without it. Courtney Lewis continues.
Member of Parliament for South East St. Anne, the PNP's Lisa Hanna says people should not be afraid to have conversations about amendments to the law as the nation moves towards constitutional reform. Her declaration comes after she moved a private member's motion to make the definition of rape gender neutral in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. Hanna was speaking on CVM News at noon on Friday.
If we're seeking to move away from the monarchy and to create our own destiny and move away from the vestiges of colonialism, then we ought to recognize how we protect our people.
Hanna says too many children, both girls and boys, are exposed to sexual violence due to the inherited Bogri laws and definitions even after independence. She says legislative changes are necessary in order to apply appropriate sanctions, adding, despite society's apprehension, she will not perpetuate hypocrisy.
The fact that one piece of legislation is creating the kind of sexual violence perpetrated upon girls, boys, women, men, because at some point it's not a homosexual law.
Yes.
That creates a sexual violence. It is the inability of people to want to do something courageous.
Hanna contends, despite criticism and public pushback, that religious and conservative groups have a role to play in influencing cultural change, as she reflects that it would be better to be on the right side of history.
They can start by understanding the harm that is being done and put themselves in a time when the church justified slavery, when they used biblical scripture to justify women not being able to vote or not having an education or being the property of a man, and really look at what they're doing in terms of the practical aspects of their work on helping people live healthy lives and living in a safe environment in Jamaica.
Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
Following the Transport Minister's announcement of a ban on all rideshare apps, to date only one company has responded to his letter. The minister has therefore disregarded his initial recommendation until the necessary framework is in place. Here's Trisha Kelly with that update.
Just last week in Parliament, Minister of Transport Vybz recommended that a ban be placed on all ride-sharing apps following the suspected kidnapping and death of 29-year-old teacher Daniel Anglin. This week, the ministry is standing down. This after only a minority of the ride-sharing community has responded to the minister's recommendation. In a press release on Friday, Minister Vybz highlighted that to date, only one telecommunications company has reached out to his ministry.
I received a formal response from one telco 6 days later on the 10th, and one I have yet to get a response from. And in discussions, both have indicated an unwillingness to block the apps on the basis that there is no legislation in place.
But his ministry is working on removing that stumbling block, as he did not expect his order to be second-guessed.
I feel very strongly that any minister of government who sees or deems an issue as a national security risk, that legislation should be in place, and it should be clear and definitive that it is an instruction and an order, not a request.
Minister Vybz says though the announcement of a ban did not create the anticipated impact, it has drawn stakeholders to the table for a more thorough discussion about the operations of such companies. He says there will be conversations about legislation for that section of the transport sector.
And I will be moving to have discussions with the Minister of National Security and my cabinet to make sure that this is done in the shortest possible time.
Until then, the ministry will discontinue its ban and allow rideshare companies to resume operations as they work alongside other ministries to develop the necessary framework. Trisha Gay Kelly, CVM News.
And we'll continue with CVM News at 7 with our business segment right after this.
Burger King with the best tasting burger under the sun. You deserve the best, you are number one. Best. Flame grilling, juicy whopper, cause you deserve it. Yeah, next level, awesome, that's how we serve it. My menu done your way, got to taste rules every day. Flame grilled goodness, you deserve it. Great taste, well done. More flavor, fresh Burger King, best tasting burger under the sun.
SuperMed Family of Pharmacies, your trusted partner in health and wellness for over 30 years. With 8 convenient pharmacies across Eastern Jamaica. SuperMed Mall Pharmacy, SuperMed New Kingston, SuperMed Pepine, SuperMed Port Antonio Pharmacies 1 and 2, Claire's St. Mary, Lloyd's St. Thomas, and a convenient drive-thru at our Hughenden location where you can get your medication without leaving your car. We're dedicated to providing you with the highest level of care. Experience the difference with SuperMed Family of Pharmacies. Super happy, super healthy.
And you go down and have a good day. Blessings. SuperMed.
Good evening and welcome to the Business Report. I'm Andrew Laidley. CARICOM's finance authorities are to meet to explore options for a new regional payment settlement system. That comes amid a decline of correspondent banking relationships, CBRs, and its associated consequences. Our reporter Ramon Gordon has the breakdown.
The CARICOM Single Market Economy, CSME, is set to convene a meeting of Caribbean finance ministers and governors next week to discuss a possible plan for a regional payment settlement system. That's according to Chair of the Caribbean Community, His Excellency Irfan Ali, who says the intention is to present a proposal on the matter at the next CARICOM Heads of Government meeting.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to trust each other. We need to trust our system. We need to trust our brain power. We do not trust ourselves and the potential we have in finding the solutions that are required for ourselves.
A payment settlement system is like a busy highway that safely and quickly moves money between banks and financial institutions. The Caribbean's primary challenge with these is a decline of correspondent banking relationships, CBRs, which are partnerships between banks that allow them to conduct transactions and provide financial services internationally. Jamaica National Money Service faced significant challenges due to the termination of its correspondent banking relationship with Cayman National Bank years ago. According to a CAPRA report, this led to higher fees and costs for JNMS to maintain its services, ultimately resulting in a shortage of U.S. currency in the Cayman Islands and impacting remittances to Jamaica. President Ali has indicated that CARICOM favors the African Export-Import Bank's self-reliant Pan-African Payment and Settlement System PAPS, which allows money to flow securely across African borders. Discussions on that matter are set to advance next week. Meanwhile, the Guyanese president is also championing a renewed focus on Caribbean blue economies and other natural resources.
We're talking about environmental services, but the world has lost in the last 50 years more than 60% of its biodiversity. Collectively, we have so many low-hanging fruits. We have to collectively put a value on what we have.
Ramon Gordon for CVM News.
Now, effective July 1, Bank of Jamaica BOJ will no longer exchange coins of the Canadian dollar, Great Britain pound, and euro at its banking counter. Now, BOJ says in recent years it has become increasingly challenging to offer this service for non-United States dollar foreign coins, primarily due to the unavailability of options for the repatriation of these coins to their respective issuing central banks. BOJ says it cannot obtain value in return after giving value for these coins at its banking counter. In the absence of repatriation arrangements for these non-USD coins, the bank says it has made the decision to cease the acceptance of these foreign coins at its banking counter. Now, the decision to cease accepting non-USD coins is consistent with the practice of central banks in the Caribbean region that are faced with similar difficulties. And that's your business report. Up next is your market summary. CVM News at 7 continues with Curlin and TK after the break.